Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're diving into the latest developments in the Karen Reed case, specifically the drama and details of yesterday's Daubert hearing, where experts clashed over whether injuries to John O'Keefe were caused by a dog attack or something else entirely. As always, I'll break it down and share my thoughts, so grab a coffee or settle in because this one's a doozy. Now, before we get into the case, let's talk about what a Daubert hearing actually is, because it's super important in understanding yesterday's events. A Daubert hearing is like a pre-trial filter for expert testimony. It's named after a Supreme Court case, Daubert v. Morel-Dow Pharmaceuticals, which set the standard for what kind of scientific or expert evidence can be used in court. Basically, the judge has to decide if the expert's methods are reliable and if their testimony is relevant to the case. They look at things like, is the expert's method testable? Has it been peer-reviewed? What's the potential error rate? And, this is a big one, is it generally accepted in their field? This is a key step because it keeps unreliable junk science out of the courtroom. So, in this hearing, the defense was trying to prove that their expert, Dr. Russell, has a reliable basis for her claims that John O'Keefe's injuries came from a dog attack, not a car accident. The prosecution, on the other hand, was working hard to show her testimony doesn't meet the Daubert standard. All right, now that we're all on the same page about what a Daubert hearing is, let's get into the specifics of this case and the heated testimony we saw yesterday. For a quick recap, Karen Reed is accused of hitting her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with her SUV after a night of drinking. But her defense claims O'Keefe was attacked by a dog and left outside to die, suggesting a cover-up involving the people at the party he attended that night. Yesterday's hearing focused on whether the defense's expert testimony on the dog attack theory should be allowed in the retrial. Let me tell you, things got heated. Dr. Russell, an emergency physician, testified for the defense. She claimed that O'Keefe's injuries were consistent with a dog bite. Now, I'll admit, hearing a medical doctor talk about dog bite patterns sounds convincing at first. But under cross-examination, the prosecution poked some serious holes in her testimony. One of the prosecution's big points was that Dr. Russell couldn't cite any widely accepted standards or methodologies for identifying dog bites. They asked her directly if she knew of any journal, book, or article that backs her claims, and she admitted she didn't. That's a pretty big red flag in a Daubert hearing, which is all about making sure expert testimony is based on reliable science.
You were asked about the injuries, and you said, I believe that these injuries were sustained by an animal, possibly a large dog, because of the pattern of injuries. Do you remember saying that?
That's not here in front of me.
But I'm asking you, do you remember saying that at the trial, that you believe the injuries were sustained by an animal, possibly a large dog?
Something to that effect, yes.
And when you said that, you used the word possible because you weren't certain, were you?
You know, Mr. Brennan, I think I explained that before, that in medicine there are no absolutes. And that's what physicians are ingrained to think, is there are no absolutes in medicine. So that's why I expressed it that way. But I was certain that it was a dog.
Yet you were testifying as an expert witness, weren't you?
Yes, I understand that, but I was thinking like a doctor.
I see. And you understood as an expert witness that you were asking the jury to rely on your opinion. You were trying to be as accurate as possible, weren't you?
Yes, I usually do, yes.
The word during your testimony to precisely describe what you thought, and you said possibly a large dog. That is different than to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
You were asked whether or not you could tell what type of animal left these marks, and you said you couldn't with 100% certainty. Isn't that true?
With 100% certainty, that's correct.
The reason why you don't have certainty when you first testified is because there really is no methodology in identifying dog bite wounds, is there?
That's incorrect.
I see. When you talk about methodology, is there any standard you're comparing your comparisons to?
There are multiple published peer-reviewed articles that describe what dog bites and dog injuries look like.
Is there any standard that you use? Is there any particular things you look at with specificity that you compare to a standard model?
The pattern.
While the prosecution raised questions about Dr. Russell's methodology, I'm not convinced they've made a strong enough case to dismiss the defense's theory outright. To me, it feels like they're leaning on undermining her credibility rather than presenting solid evidence that definitely supports their own claims. Another point that stuck out to me was when the prosecution grilled Dr. Russell about her lack of investigation into the scene. She admitted she hadn't visited the site or looked at detailed photos of the debris. While the prosecution pointed out that Dr. Russell didn't personally examine the scene, I think it's just as important to ask why the prosecution hasn't provided stronger evidence to completely rule out the dog attack theory. Both sides have gaps here, but the defense's questions about the investigation still stand out to me. And let's talk about the evidence, or lack thereof. The prosecution brought up the fact that there was no dog DNA found on O'Keefe's clothing. They also pointed out that hair from O'Keefe was found in Reed's car, along with broken taillight fragments at the scene. If this was a dog attack, wouldn't there be saliva, scratches, or other trace evidence? It's a valid question. But here's the thing. Does the prosecution have anything more conclusive to disprove the defense's theory? That's what we should be asking. Now, let's take a step back, y'all. I've been following this case from the start, and there are some serious issues that make me lean toward the defense's side. The biggest problem with the prosecution's case? It's built almost entirely on circumstantial evidence. There's no direct proof that Karen Reed intentionally killed John O'Keefe. Instead, they've focused on her alleged actions before and after the incident, along with her driving record and statements to police. But where's the hard evidence tying her SUV to O'Keefe's injuries? On the flip side, the defense has raised some compelling points. They've argued this entire investigation was flawed, and they've even suggested that Karen Reed is being framed. Y'all, let that sink in for a second. They're not just claiming she's innocent. They're claiming there might be a cover-up involving law enforcement. That's a bombshell accusation, and if it's true, it would explain why so many questions remain unanswered. What really stands out to me is how messy this entire case is. Witness testimonies have been inconsistent. The forensic analysis has been called into question. And then there's the mistrial from the first trial, where the jury couldn't even reach a unanimous decision. That tells me there's a lot of reasonable doubt here. The defense's narrative might not be perfect, but it's strong enough to make me question whether prosecution can meet their burden of proof. Y'all, I truly believe in innocent until proven guilty. And in Karen Reed's case, the prosecution just hasn't provided enough to erase that doubt. Instead, it feels like they are relying on a patchwork of circumstantial evidence while the defense is exposing real flaws in the investigation. I'm not saying the defense has all the answers, but they've raised enough valid points to make me think Karen Reed might not be getting a fair shake here. As the trial approaches, I'll be keeping a close eye on how both sides present their cases, and of course, I'll keep y'all updated every step of the way. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think there's a cover-up here? Or do you believe the prosecution has it right? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. Until next time, stay curious and stay kind. Bye, y'all.